So friends, uh, let's talk about structural equation modeling. And first of all, let's try to understand what is the background of structural equation modeling. The background of structural equation modeling, it appears to be a very modern technique, but it is not that modern because the first time the term path analysis was being used by civil right in 19th century, and in during that time civil right actually used this path analysis to draw a causal relationship between a dependent variable and independent variable. And incidentally, civil right, who was an practitioner in the domain of economics or econometrics, when used this technique, then there was not much taker at that point of time, because if you remember those times, there was a very two prominent school of thought, which is a Fisher school of thought and the Pearson school of thought. And Fisher school of thought, Ronald A. Fisher, was very critical of establishing the causality, and there was always a fight between the Pearson and Fisher. So there was such a dominance at that point of time, it did not get its acceptance. However, civil's right father was a professor and he published a paper, and in one of the paper he used the path analysis, and path analysis output was being carried out in an exhibit kind of stuff in a paper. And this is where it started drawing attention as far as the academic literature is concerned. And then Horsok did a wonderful job in 1980s, wherein the software called linear structural relationship, LISREL, LISREL, LISREL came into existence. So from there, the terms started getting popularity. But the problem with that at that point of time was that LISREL was command-based software, and it was like elite club. Those who were comfortable in coding, they were able to apply SEM, and rest of others were not able to do at that point of time, and that is why it could not pick up. But with the emergence or introduction of this very user-friendly software like MOS or Smart PLS or M+, right, then SEM got a lot of popularity, because this software which we are going also to use is analysis of moment structure, and this is a very, very user-friendly software. And emergence of these kind of software has made things much easier. Literally, the things are now that you need to draw a diagram, attach the diagram with a data file, and rest of the things are being done by the software. So that is the reason that it got popularity of late, because emergence of the software and people started writing about SEM of late, and that's why it got a lot of popularity. Now let's try to understand why SEM is so popular. SEM is so popular. One, it's a technique which can deal with a construct. Now, what is a construct? Construct is, friends, something that can be conceptually defined but cannot be measured directly, is termed as construct. For example, ambience of this hole is a construct, right? So I cannot have one single parameter to judge what is the ambience of this hole. For example, if I want to understand the ambience of this hole, I would look at the acoustic quality, I would look at the air conditioning, I would look at the other features which are there in this particular room. So that all would together would determine the ambience of this particular hole. So the problem with the regression analysis is the regression analysis does take into account only the observed variable. It does not take into account the latent variable. Now, the good thing with the SEM is, and majority of the time, most of the time when we are using analysis in our research work, and most of the time we are dealing with the construct rather than only observed variable. Now, as I said, ambience of this hole is a construct, stress level is a construct, health is a construct, service quality is a construct, right? So these are all construct because they are being made up of certain item, not indicating one particular item. So organizational commitment, your employee satisfaction, customer satisfaction, brand loyalty, brand equity, these are all well established construct. So therefore, the good thing with the SEM is, or the powerful thing with the SEM is, it does take into account the construct part. So that is the reason that it is so popular. The second reason why it is so popular is, unlike regression analysis, which is based on a single indicator item, and yesterday Akanshaji was talking about that the examiner becomes so fussy that, or I think Vibhuti ji was talking about that examiner becomes so fussy that why R square is coming out to be so low. What if I manipulate the R square? Because there are various ways of manipulating the R square. How can I manipulate the R square? If I change the number of predictors, R square can change. If I increase the sample size or decrease the sample size, value of R square will change. So generally, that is the reason. In addition to R square in regression, we also ask you to report the adjusted R square, right? So therefore, if one indicator item is there, or if only one model fit statistics is there, then the chances of that being manipulated is much high. So unlike regression, where we are relying too much on R square or adjusted R square, here we would be looking at the goodness of it, badness of it, overall fit. So we will not rely on a single indicator. So we would be looking at the overall fit or global fit, what we call chi-square minimum of degree by degree of freedom, and GFI, CFI, and RMR and RMSEA. So these terms we'll be discussing today. But then, so the story is, the crux of the story is that we are not relying on a single variable, single indicator. We would be looking into multiple indicator whether the model is fit or not. That's another reason of SEM being so popular. Third reason SEM being so popular is, in SEM, if you remember the other day I was talking about the regression analysis, and I said my regression equals to regression equation would be y is equals to a plus bx, and I thought, or I assumed the error is normally distributed with mean 0. But sometime every observed variable is coming with a mean, some error term, right? So, and let's say if I have to draw a diagram like this, then E1, E2, E3 are the error. So this V1 is coming with an error 1, V2 is coming with error 2, and V3 is coming with error 3. So there would be an explicit measurement of error in the SEM, which was not the case in the regression. So if I am measuring a construct, there would be certain error, and we would be measuring that error also. So that is another reason of SEM being popular, that it would not assume error to be equals to be 0. Third thing, ACM being popular is, let's say there are two constructs X and Y, and again these are V4, V5, V6, or let's say V4, V5 are the two indicator item with the Y construct, and let's say X and Y are correlated. They are allowed to be correlated, or we would be visually representing these constructs to be correlated, right? So I would be allowing, or I would be drawing a correlationship or covariance between X and Y, which again was neither permissible nor feasible in the regression, because in regression we say there should not be multicollinearity, and we have no such provision of no linking the two construct. So that is another reason that ACM is so popular, that it allows to draw multicollinearity in the diagram. Next thing, why ACM is so popular is it does take care of the moderation and mediation in much better way as compared to the regression analysis. Now, what is a moderation? If the relationship between A and B get influenced by any third variable, then it is termed as moderating variable. So those variable which influences the relationship between two constructs are termed as moderating variable. On a lighter note, I generally give an example. Let's say the relationship between a mother-in-law and daughter-in-law depends upon whether the husband is there in the house or not, right? So if the husband is there, the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law is different. The moment husband goes out, the relation changes. So that means the presence of husband influences the relationship of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. So that means husband acts as a moderating variable or moderator between these particular relationships. So if I have to choose one word for moderation, it would be influence. So any third variable which influence the relationship between two variables is termed as moderating variable. So in structural equation modeling, when you will be drawing the diagram, let's say you want to say the customer engagement depends on these many factors, and somebody says, well, customer engagement depends on this factor, but it would also depend what kind of platform which has been used, whether you've used YouTube, or you've used a Facebook, or you use a Twitter, or you use a LinkedIn. So whether the type of platform influences the relationship between your antecedent and a consequent, or your dependent variable. Yes, endogenous and Shuchiji is a good observation from your side. Endogenous and exogenous is being used in a slightly different context here. Endogenous variables are like independent variable in the structural equation modeling, and exogenous variables are like dependent variable or dependent variable in the regression. So in the SEM we use the term endogenous and exogenous instead of dependent and independent variable. But moderating variables are not endogenous variable. Moderating variables are those variables which influences the relationship. They don't come into the picture, they influence the relationship between A and B, right? So those kind of variables, for example, gender at times becomes a moderating variable. So you want to draw a relationship between a dependent variable and independent variable, and you say, well, it depends whether this, for example, if I say that, okay, in the new policy of our job, then the changes we would be doing is that we would not hike your pay, but we might reduce your duration of the stay in our workplace by half an hour or maybe an hour's time. Now, so I want to understand as a researcher, what will be the effect of new work policy or reduction in the working hours on the employee satisfaction, how happy they would be. Now, somebody might say that it would depend, it might vary based on the gender. Yes, external variable Extraneous variable is actually a because these all variables are extraneous. You are not Bridgman. You are not looking at the relationship between. I mean, you are looking at only the relationship between dependent and independent. Any third variable which is resulting into the influence of this. So it's like this. So A and B, it gets moderated. There is a moderating variable here, which gets, which is influencing the relationship between A and B. So it's an extraneous variable. So the example which I was giving was, if I reduce the number of working hours, would it lead to job satisfaction, or would people be motivated? Then somebody might argue, sir, it depends. For example, with all due regard, but it may so happen that our female friends or female colleague might prefer this model, that they because they have to do a lot of work-life balance, right? So even a 1 hour which would be saved, they would they would be rather happy if the duration of the stay, even if monetary. But same thing cannot be talked about male colleague. They you that even if you increase my duration by half an hour, but you have to increase my pay package. So the point and vice versa. I'm not saying that I don't want to show any biasness, but it could be vice versa also. But the point here is the relationship between this working hours and satisfaction may depend upon gender, B, the experience in the organization. Let's say if I'm very experienced and has been there in this organization for long, and therefore I may resist, and somebody who is very new to the organization may not be in a position to resist, or may not be in a position to put forward his viewpoint. So that could be another uh, moderating variable. What is my position in the hierarchy? That might influence whether what would be the relationship. So therefore, those variable which influences the relationship between A and B is termed as moderating variable. Unlike regression, in regression also we can do that, but there is a longer step. Either you have to go for an hierarchical regression, or you have to use a process macro developed by, let's say, Andrew F. Hayes. You can refer it later. You can check in the SPSS. There is a process macro which takes care of the moderation and mediation. But again, even if you are using a process macro, the underlying thing is that you are dealing with the observed variable. Are those variables which explain the relationship between A and B, right? So what could be an example of mediating variable? For instance, you find that, okay, those people who are rich are likely to live long, right? Or it appears on a prima facie that wealth or affluence of a person influences the lifespan. But then somebody might say that affluence directly has no relationship with the lifespan. Those who are affluent or wealthier, they have better access to the healthcare system, and as a result of it, they are having a bigger lifespan or better lifespan. So access to healthcare system is a mediating variable. It explains the relationship between dependent variable and independent variable. For example, if it's been raining outside, so I'll be taking umbrella. But I can say that it's not that because of the rain I'm taking umbrella. So it appears prima facie that it's raining and that's why I'm taking umbrella. But what if I don't want to remain dry? So my desire to remain dry makes me to take umbrella. It's not the rain which makes me to take umbrella. So if somebody wants to enjoy the rain, would not take the umbrella. So this desire to remain dry explains the relationship between taking out umbrella and it's being raining outside. So those variable which explain the relationship between two variables is termed as explanatory variable or mediating variable. And we look at whenever in the research we look at phenomenon very carefully, you would find certain variable which are mediating variable in the relationship. But please understand that moderation and mediation cannot be your wishful thinking that, okay, this is what I feel. It should be based on some strong literature support. wherein you would say that, okay, these variables are found to be moderator or a mediator. And even if there is no strong support, then either you would have conducted a qualitative research or some sort of in-depth interviews or some sort of uh, what we call inductive work has been done in order to arrive at this conclusion that there could be such effect could be a moderating variable. So I'm not saying that people at times start assuming that whenever I talk this kind of thing in the lecture, that people say, if that is the case, then are you trying to say that then how people would identify a new moderator? If every time I have to find out a literature support, then how at one end you say, sir, what you are adding to the existing body of knowledge, and other end you are saying that whatever moderating and mediating variable you would be taking has to have a literature support. It's a very interesting dialogue. I don't know whether I am making sense to you guys or not. Whether uh, am I making sense to you? Are you able to follow our discussion? If you can type in the chat box, yes. All right. Yeah. So it appears that the people are interested. Great, great, great. Okay. Now I'd like to answer. So we have to understand this. These two things are different. I understood. Very nice that you guys could follow. When we say what you are adding to the existing body of knowledge does not mean we are only looking at something that you are coming with a new variable altogether or a new theory altogether, then only it is termed as research. No, that's there is something wrong with the understanding there. What is a research? Please understand, research is you're finding out a new reality. Research is not about finding out new truth. So that's very common thing which you should understand. Research is not about finding the truth. Truth are only two, according to me: the God and the death. These are the only two things which can be termed as truth. All other things are reality, right? And realities are bound to change, right? So when it comes to reality, so I give you one reality of looking at the things, right? I say the God exists in a mortal form or in a tangible form, and these are the evidences from the literature that the God exists in this way. Now, if somebody comes and come out with an argument that it's not that the God exists in this particular form, there is another way of looking at the God, and this is, according to me, this is the way God exists, and these are my support. And if your support supersedes my support, then your reality would exist. So that would be considered as the reality. Now, one fine day, if somebody else comes in and try to bring out a new reality, then that would exist. What is happening in the corona time is what? There is no ultimate truth, no. We were being told that, okay, you have to maintain a social distance, you will be free from the corona. But there were instances where the social distancing was being maintained, still there was instances of corona. Then people give a different reality. Then it was being told that if you are vaccinated, then the chances are there that you will not be infected. Then the new theory came in that even if you are vaccinated, there is still chances of being infected. So now they are coming. Now they are saying that the virus is bypassing the immunity. So is there any fundamental truth? We never know. And in fact, the science is also not sure what is the real. I mean, what is the truth? What we are searching is the reality. So today, I conducted an experiment and I realized, okay, if I rub the sanitizer by 30 seconds, the virus is likely to be killed. But somebody might come up with another experiment, and if he says if the sanitizer mixed with some other liquid, and if it's being rubbed for only 15 seconds, virus would be killed. So new theory would come in. Or suddenly we might say that this mask is not helping anything. Now let's throw it. So, and there would be evidences of proving that. And interestingly, most of the scientific studies, medical science, they are generally being done in a very closed laboratory setup. And most of the time, they generalize based on a very small sample, 15, 20 trials or some respondent. And that may be true for that particular, sample only. For example, uh, what should be the level of vitamin D in a human body, right? For example, what would be the healthy limit? But if the researches are being conducted in a Western context and their environmental conditions are entire different, their skin color is entire different, maybe their requirement is entirely different from our requirement. So then the parameter would again change. So what I'm trying to explain here is so what I'm trying to put forward is it's not that research is always about finding the new truth or finding the new reality. You can re-establish the reality, but the lens has to be new. The way you are examining the reality, that has to be new. There has to be a concrete reason why you are doing this, in the sense that was there any gap? So when are you saying, where do we question that you are not contributing something is that you are saying 2 plus 2 is 4, and therefore, sir, what I found is 20 plus 20 is 40. And sir, surprisingly, 200 plus 200 is also 400. There we question. Because you are using the same operation of addition and you are just changing the number. Then you are saying that mine is a new finding. That is what is being questioned. But if you say that 2 plus 2 would always not be 4, in this case, sir, you find that this is 2, but if you add it up, it is not coming out to be 4, and that is one of the way of looking at the things. And if the other person start thinking, yes, whatever he is saying is at least debatable, even if it is not ultimate truth or ultimate reality, but yes, there is another way of examining the reality, then it is a research. So what I was saying was the whole discussion started from the fact that mediation, when you are talking about, should come from a hypothesis. The reason is then it is very easy to justify that why you have taken a moderating variable and mediating variable. Otherwise, selecting a moderating variable or a mediating variable in your research is actually involves a lot of steps. It cannot be your general statement. So it does involve a lot of steps, and they have to meet out those steps in order to call it moderating variable and mediating variable. Either you have to follow a strict protocol of first testing it with a small group, then figuring out that yes, or maybe you have to present your viewpoint and you have to very strongly argue why there is a likelihood of this being a mediating variable. Most of the time we lack that argument, or we are not able to what we call convey properly why it should be taken as mediating variable or moderating variable. That is why for a beginners we say, rather than taking up something as a moderating mediating variable straight away, it is always advisable that you start with something which is already established. But if you also have a similar apprehension that if everybody start thinking like this, then when the new knowledge would be created. So I'm not saying that new knowledge should not be created. What I'm saying is new knowledge to be created, no doubt, but the protocol of the new knowledge creation has to be followed. Most of the time I'm on a very again deviating from my main topic, but a lot of time people comes and a research scholar very innocently said that in my PhD, in my research, there was no existing scale. And therefore, sir, I developed a scale. So that's a great contribution. So they take a pride in saying that, sir, I have written all my questions. Writing question at your end or framing question at your end is not scale development. Please understand. Skill development is a process. It has to go through the rigorous steps of skill development. First, you have to identify, brainstorm the item based on the literature. Then you go and talk to the expert, find out whether there is a content validity of these items or not. conduct a pilot, do an EFA, prove that these are the item which is measuring this particular construct which you are proposing, establish the reliability and validity of the instrument, then go for a scale development, no problem. So scale development is a entire process. You have to first apply EFA, then you have to apply CFA on a different sample together. Then only you can say that I have developed a scale. But what is the easy way out? That you take a scale which has been already developed, somebody else has developed this scale, you just modify it, collect your own data, validate by reliability and validity, you can proceed. So similarly, the same thing holds for the moderating and mediating variable. My only suggestion to you is you cannot say that this is my intuition. You said this would happen like this because this is my gut feeling. There would be a lack of acceptance when you talk about gut feeling because it has to be supported by a theory, right? Most of the reviewer, the other day also people are talking that paper gets rejected at times. Paper gets rejected on this small thing, right? That when you are not giving any strong theoretical background about the variables being selected, then it might get rejected. Any questions so far? Because I think most of the reasons I have already explained that why SEM is so popular. But I would look forward if anybody has any observation. Please let me know if you have any question. If you can type yes or no in case if it is clear. One or two people of yes. It's not clear or question or there is no question, I suppose. Difference between moderate and iterating variable clear. No question, sir. Bridgman, explanatory variable, intervening variable, moderating variable are the same. All right. Now, why structural equation modeling is termed as structural equation modeling? Let's try to understand this. Let's say the one which I have drawn in circle is termed as construct. The one which I have drawn in the rectangle is termed as observed variable. So, when you are saying that x is being reflected through x1, x2, x3. So with this, we have introduced the term called reflective. So there are two types of construct, friends, reflective and formative. Reflective constructs are those constructs which are symptoms of a particular phenomenon or a concept and which you intend to measure through various indicator items. For example, blood pressure or a stress is being reflected through that I am having a vomiting sensation, I am having a headache, I am not able to concentrate on my job. These are all symptoms of the blood pressure or a stress. So that is a reflective construct. So let's say if somebody is having a stress, then these would be the symptoms. On the other hand, what could lead to stress? For example, higher consumption of alcohol, difficult boss, or let's say there is a disturbed family, right? Or you have a high sugar, high salt intake. They all lead to stress or they all lead to blood pressure. So what all lead to stress or a particular construct is termed as formative. So the error would come other way around. So in reflective, the arrow would be going from construct to observed variable. In formative, it would be other way around and there would not be any error term. Right? So a construct could be reflective and formative. Any doubt in the reflective and formative constructs? Formative.
May we have another example? May we have another example, please?
Okay, great. Let's say I want to understand whether my customers are satisfied or not. So if they are making a repeated purchase, if they are having a better word of mouth, right? And if they are again coming to my site, that means these are all symptoms that my customers are satisfied, right? So that is my reflective construct. So customer satisfaction is reflected through this. So these are all ways of checking whether my customer is satisfied or not. On the other hand, if let's say if you are giving a bonus point, if you are giving a loyalty program, if you are offering some discount, right, and they all lead to customer satisfaction. So they all are forming customer satisfaction. So if these indicator items are forming the customer satisfaction, so customer satisfaction comprises of this, then it is a formative. Customer satisfaction is reflected through, right? Because there is no direct measure, no. So therefore, you would say yes. If these things are there, that means the customer is satisfied. So if you are looking at the symptoms, reflective. If you are looking at the causes, why it is happening, then it is a formative construct. Yeah, please.
What leads to high blood pressure and what are the symptoms? The construct is anyway the same.
Blood pressure.
Yes.
So blood pressure is being formed by.
Yeah. I think what construct is reflective construct, formative construct. Why? Since we are talking about the same construct.
No,
Ultimately,
the blood pressure is a construct,
yes.
but the moment these things are leading to blood pressure, we call it as a formative construct. This construct is being formed by this, that is why formative. And this construct, again, the same construct is being reflected through. So we are adding an adjective here, no? Reflective construct or formative. These are type of construct, right?
So can we say like and cause of consequences?
Yes, but then you have to be careful, Gurvin, in the sense that sometimes what happens is in the ACM diagram, arrows would be going like this also. So you should not get confused whether that would become a reflective or formative. The relationship is between the construct and the observed variable only, then in order to call it is a reflective or formative. If the relationship is between two construct, then it is a structural relationship, not the formative and reflective. All right?
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so means in a simple way, can we say customer satisfaction is like independent and the symptoms are like dependent?
Yes, for this particular reason, that is why the arrow has been drawn like this. For a reflective construct, the items are dependent, and for formative construct, the construct would be dependent. Right? So,
Exactly. Yes.
correct. That's
Yes.
true.
Exactly. Exactly. We can in the formative we can use the satisfaction as dependent, and the
Right.
causes the other one are the independent. Like this is the
Correct.
difference
True.
between formative and reflective.
Correct.
Thank you.
Now, the equation which I have formed, since sir has already has used this particular term, so let's say if lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 are the loadings of these observed variables. The way we did in a factor analysis, there was loading, right? In the pattern matrix, there was loading. So lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 are the loadings. Now, if I have to draw an equation, what Professor Hussain is talking about is, let's say, x1 equals to lambda 1 x plus error term 1. That's the equation you would have, because arrow is going from x to x1. So x1 would be dependent variable and x would be independent variable. So equation would be x1 equals to lambda 1 x plus e. Similarly, x2 would be what? Lambda 2x plus e. 2. Similarly, x3 would be what? Lambda 3 x plus e3. Isn't it? And similarly, whatever number of observed variable are there, I would draw an equation like this. Which one?
In the relation.
This is an error only, no? This error is nothing but because this is regressing on,
Constant.
This constant is if I'm measuring something else other than this, right? But here I'm saying the observed variable is coming out. Okay, I got your confusion. You said, why don't you treat it as a bivariate regression? No, no. See, here is what is an x1, x2, x3? It is an item. And what is an item? I like to play with my sibling. An item. So what is the variable here is? Playing with sibling, right? What is the kind of association I have with my sibling? So this x1 is measuring certain thing, and this x1 which I am measuring could be because of the construct which I am measuring, or it could be something else which is not related to construct, isn't it? For example, the other day I gave an example that I regularly go to the office. That means I am loyal customer or loyal employee, right? So employee satisfaction, you are measuring through a reflective item whether I am going regularly to my office or not. So you ask three questions: whether I am going regularly to office or not, whether I talk sincerely to my student or not. These are all questions which you ask in your. Now, one of the statement was, I am going regularly to my office and 1 to 5, and I said 5. Now, what did you assume? This since this person is going regularly to the office, that means he is satisfied or employee is satisfied. So that is the satisfaction part. But it may so happen that I am going to office other than this reason. That is error. So that is the beauty of the this ACM is it does take into account the error term, right? So it's not that I'm looking at other variables which also influences this relationship. Here I am only explaining my measurement item, or what we call generally do it like this, that when you are measuring an observed variable, how much is the measurement and how much is the error, right? So what is the extent of measurement and what is the extent of error? If the measurement is, or what we call true response is less and error is more, then it's not reliable item, right? So it is in that context. Now, is it were you able to follow what ma'am has asked and answer I have given? She has categorically asked that, sir, if that is the case, then yesterday or otherwise also in the regression you write as y is equals to a plus bx, then why there is no intercept which is being mentioned here? So I explained this x1, x2, x3 are observed variable, and this x, y, z, they are unobserved variable, construct, factor, latent variable, dimension, कुछ भी नाम दे दी, right? Let's say construct or unobserved variable. So how much unobserved variable can be measured by this particular item is being represented by lambda 1x plus whatever cannot be measured is an error term. So I am only writing in that context. Now, in order to arrive at, because in this equation, ma'am, I have value for only x1, x2, x3, because this is only I am getting from my respondent. I have to compute the value of lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 and even E2, E3. So how can I compute 6 values out of 3 values? So I have to solve the system of equation in order to arrive at this structural coefficient. Lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 are termed as structural coefficient, right? They are like your regression weights or loadings, right? So this structural coefficient can be computed using the system of equation. That is why it is termed as structural equation modeling, because the system of equation has been drawn and you are using those structural coefficient in order to arrive at the value of lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 in order, and through by system of equation. So that is why it is termed as ACM. Is this distinction clear? Are you call it as ACM? Shall I proceed further? Looks like yes, sir. All right. Now, let's say there are two types of structural equation modeling. One is variance-based ACM program or variance-based structural equation modeling and covariance-based ACM. Most of the time, student apply ACM without understanding whether they have used variance-based ACM or covariance-based ACM, and why it is termed as variance-based and covariance-based ACM. And this is a very frequently asked question in interviews in the Viva, that when you would say, okay, I've used MOS, then generally the examiner or the expert asks, why did you use MOS only? Why not other softwares or Smart PLS or something like that? So please understand, if the input matrix, so what appears is you would realize, okay, I am giving something in the form of input, in the form of a raw responses, I am giving their responses. No. Actually, what would happen is those raw responses which you would be giving or you would be writing in an Excel sheet would actually be transformed into correlation matrix or a covariance matrix, right? Or if you are converting this raw data into covariances in order to compute certain statistical measure or to test whether there is a fitness or not. So even if you given a raw data, your software would convert your data into covariances. That is why it is termed as covariance-based ACM program. Analysis of moment structure, MOS, the one which we will be using, MOS graphics, is actually a covariance-based ACM program. On the other hand, if you are converting or if your software is converting your data into variances rather than a covariance, and if the input is a variance rather than a covariance, then it is a variance-based ACM program. And the classic example of variance-based ACM program is Smart PLS, SMART PLS. Smart PLS is a software which is being used for the variance-based ACM program, and there are many others also like M+, Lizral, even in the R also you can do, right? So these are, that is the difference which you should know, that when you are using MOS in your research, then by default, then you should understand that you are actually using the covariance-based ACM program. So whatever is there in the covariances, you have to bear with that. Now, interestingly, statistically speaking, covariances are better in terms of statistical property as compared to the correlation, but yet correlations are much popular. The reason is because what happens is when you convert the covariance into correlation, the problem is whatever is the structure of the data, it would be reduced to -1 to +1 irrespective of the level of measurement, right? On the other hand, when you are computing the covariances, it would be in the same unit of measurement. For example, summation xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar would be the covariances. But covariance divided by product of standard deviation. So it appears that the standard correlation is better. Correlation is more intuitive, no doubt. You can always make a comparison that if the correlation is 0.3 and some other data point correlation is 0.6, you can say that, okay, this data set has a higher correlation as compared to the other data. But when you convert data into correlation, you actually lose out information. It's like wheat is there. When you convert into a maida, you actually lose out a lot of nutritional quality or constituent of the wheat, right? On the other hand, if you grind it to, let's say, some granular form or a dalia kind of thing, then it would have much more nutrition. So that dalia or the granular thing would be a covariance, and that maida would actually be a correlation. But obviously, maida is more tempting as compared to anything else. That is why we have to understand that what is going as an input, covariances is going as an input as far as the MOS is concerned. All right. So with this, we have understood now what is a reflective construct, what is a formative construct, why it is termed as SEM, which measure is better, this all we have understood. Now we are moving to a practical part. But before I move to the practical part, if anybody wants to understand any of the theoretical issue related to SAM, they are free to discuss. No issues. Otherwise, I'll be moving to MOs. There are certain assumptions which I'll be doing it in the no software only, so that you would be able to relate it better. I'll not be, because it's almost on an hour. We have been talking about foundation things, but I think now it's a high time we should go to the software part. Has anybody have any question? All right. So I'm assuming that there is no question. So therefore, I'm going to share my screen. All right. I hope my screen is visible now. So please open this icon, or simply type here for search. You just type MO graphics, or this crown-like icon here. If you could see in my screen, it's like this, right? Open this one. By the time you open it, let me clear the screen. A very user-friendly software, MOS Graphics, developed by IBM, right? And I'm assuming that some of you might have downloaded it, and we are good to go with the software. So this is the MOS Graphics. If you are not able to locate the crown-like icon on your desktop, you can simply type IBM MOS and you'll be directed to your software. It's a Microsoft Paint kind of look, right? Wherein this would be your play area. This is where you would be working primarily. This is the area canvas. Here I will be drawing the diagram. This can be converted into a landscape to portrait, and size can also be increased, which we will be doing later. But this is the canvas where I will be drawing the diagram. These are the icons which I will be using. The first row, first column, first icon is a square, or a what we call a rectangle kind of shape. This indicates an observed item or a question which you are asking in your questionnaire. This oval is actually like a construct, and this crown-like shape is like construct with an observed item. I think I'll be using this one only, right? So in order to select any, let's say I want to understand how coordination. Is my whiteboard visible on the screen? This board is visible?
Yes.
Or I should switch camera a little bit. How is it now? Better?
Yes.
So let's say the first construct is the coordination. Is not?
I will just.
The second construct is need assessment. Third construct is, let's say, preparedness. Fourth construct is, let's say, behavioral factor. And fifth construct is the performance of operation. Right? And let's say by EFA or a priori factor analysis, we came to know coordination comprises of three variables: COR1, COR1, COR2, COR3. Similarly, Na can be comprises of Na1, Na2, Na3. Prep can be comprises of prep 1, prep 2, prep 3. And behavioral factor comprises of 4 variables, let's say BH1, BH2, BH3, BH4. And similarly, performance has been comprises of 4 items: availability, quality, timeliness, and equity of service. And everything is coming with error, error 1, error 2, error 3, error 4, error 5, error 6, and so on and so forth.
Professor, yeah, we cannot, the camera is only tell NA, we cannot see anything above. Could you please, yeah, make it a bit.
Not on the canvas, on the board.
On the
This
board,
is
yes,
my
yes. The board, yes.
board you are able to see?
The board,
No.
you can see NA,
Visible, sir.
visible till NA only. The above is not clear.
Huh?
Could you please switch it a bit up? Yeah, more. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank
Is that
you.
okay now, sir?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, in any case, I'll be drawing in the MOS also, right?
Okay, great.
So now what I was explaining, because I thought rather than directly jumping to the software, let me explain the context why we are using MOS. So I want to see, let's say this coordination, need assessment, preparedness, behavioral factor influences my performance of operation. So dependent variable would be performance, and these all 4 would be independent variable, right? Now, how this 4 variable influences the 5th one, which is performance. Now, this coordination, need assessment, prep and behavioral factor would be termed as endogenous construct. Somebody wanted to understand the endogenous. So the right term is coordination, need assessment, preparedness and behavioral factors are endogenous construct. And this PRO is an exogenous construct, EXO. Because arrows would be going from coordination to PRO, not from, no arrows would be coming, any construct would be coming to no coordination. So in simpler words, let's make things simpler. Coordination, need assessment, preparedness, behavioral factor are independent variable. Okay, in any case, I'll be using the MOS. Okay. So, and PRO would be a dependent variable. But prior to doing that, I want to understand whether the items which we have used to measure the need assessment, preparedness, coordination, and PRO, are they truly measuring, or are they consistently measuring what we intend to? So first, I would like to establish the reliability and validity of this scale with the approach called confirmatory factor analysis. So there is an approach called exploratory factor analysis, where you do not know the underlying structure of the variable, and therefore you do it organically and then come out with a structure. Here you know beforehand that my need assessment comprises of NA1, NA2, NA3. My PRO comprises of availability, quality, timeliness, and equity, and so on and so forth. You just want to confirm it. So the approach which is being used in the measurement model would be confirmatory factor analysis, CFA, right? So the purpose of the measurement model is because you are measuring whether these constructs are truly measuring or accurately measuring what you intend to or not. That is why it is termed as measurement model. In measurement model, all the arrows would be correlated with each other. There would be covariances between the construct. I'll not be using a single-sided arrow in the measurement model. So I would be drawing a measurement model here. So what do I mean by measurement model? I'll be drawing a diagram like this. Right? So all the constructs are freely related to each other is termed as measurement model. Right? Any questions so far? Is this term measurement model is clear to you? What happens in the measurement model is you freely correlate, construct with each other, and the underlying goal of the measurement model is you want to see whether constructs are reliable and valid or not, right? And whether they are truly capturing what you intend to or not. So that is the goal of the measurement model. So let me come back to my MOS software. So first you have to, now I'm just erasing the diagram which I have drawn, because otherwise it would confuse you from the screen. That's why I'm erasing it now. Now, the first thing which you would be doing is you would be drawing a construct. Now, if any point of time you realize that you are not able to cope up, please let us know. We'll repeat the step. So first, move your mouse. I'm using the laptop, so probably in the laptop I'm using my cursor to go to this crown-like shape. So if you are using an external mouse, that would be better, right? But if you are using a laptop, then you have to use the mouse which is there in the laptop, and then you just select, or you go to crown-like shape, and you simply click it. When you would, I have left clicked it, right? I have simply left clicked the crown-like shape. The third icon, the third column, first icon is a crown-like shape. You simply click it, and then you go to canvas. When you would go to the canvas, such kind of structure should appear. Now simply you go to any place, let's say on the top of the canvas. Now release the mouse and now simply left click the this canvas. You would kind of get an oval like shape here. Is that okay? Left click. You got it?
Yes, sir.
Let me check those who are offline. Let me check. All right. So you have to hold the mouse, and then you can adjust the shape of the circle. If you want me to repeat it again, I can do it again. I'll just do Control Z. Go to the third column, first icon. Select the icon by left click. Now you simply freely move to the canvas. Come to any place of the canvas. Then hold the mouse from the left side, right? And then you can accordingly decide what should be the size of the oval. So just keep pressing the left click, and then you can adjust the size, right? And then let's say the first construct comprises of 3 indicator items. So I have to click it for 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. So when you would do it 3 times, you would find that some of the portion of my diagram is going above, so that we would change, don't worry. But you have to click 3 times. Don't do it more than 3 times, because otherwise you have to delete it. So do it 3 times. Any doubt, any confusion so far? Is it okay? Those who are doing, are they able to follow what I'm doing? Those who are doing it the offline, I can take care, but online I have no option, except in case if you let us know, then only we can explain it again. All right. Now.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay. Now, let's say this diagram has been partly shaded by the screen. So I want to change it. So what I'll do is, I'll go to there is something called reflection and rotation. So what I'll do is, I'll go to rotation. So there is a second column, 5th icon. There's a circular column, circular icon, which takes into account the rotation part. So I want to rotate this construct. So I'll simply select this icon and I'll rotate it. So when I click it once, it would rotate it 90 degrees. When you click twice, it would go rotate another 90 degrees. So and so forth, you can rotate the icon. Now, there is another icon which means reflection of the item, right? Just adjacent to rotation, there is a reflection. So what happens in the reflection is, if you move the icon or those arrows by 180 degree instead of 90 degree, then there is something called reflection. So I go to the reflect, and then I simply I select this one, and now I reflect this. So this would rotate by 180 degree. So the previous step was you can rotate the icon in the second column, fifth icon, circular. Second column, fifth icon talks about the rotation, right? So when I select the second column, the icon behind the truck-like symbol is an icon for rotation. So I have selected the rotation, and then I am moved by, and I simply go to the canvas and I click it. So when I go and click it there, it gets rotated by 90 degree. So earlier it was not visible, now I can see it clearly, right? Is that okay? Shall we move further? If some of you
Okay,
in the
sir. Okay,
meeting,
sir.
all right, good. So now what I'll do is, now I realize that okay, this has to be required at least 3 times, or maybe I want to repeat it. So rather than doing it every time, there is a provision in the MOS that you can duplicate these icon and you create a copy of this. So rather than doing it every time yourself, you can create a copy of it. So how do you create a copy? So in the fourth icon in the first row, there is an icon like single finger, which means you can select one object. Their icon like all fingers, that means you can select all icon, all object, and there is a closed this thing, that means that deselect. So I want to select all of them, so I simply select all of them. Though the fourth icon in the second column, all fingers, you are asking software to select all of them, right? Now I want to create a duplicate. So what I'll do is, in the first column, fifth icon is a truck-like symbol, or sorry, a copy-like symbol, like a photocopy machine, right? So I'll be creating a copy of this. So I'll select this, and I would simply bring this into the canvas and hold the left side of the mouse and move the icon like this. I repeat, you go to the canvas, hold the left side, left click of the mouse, and then just bring it down. So you have created a carbon copy of the first icon. The advantage of this would be that you would be able to reduce your work, and not only you will be able to reduce the work, there would be a good symmetry in your diagram. Similarly, you can do it for the next time. I mean, the same thing can be done for third time and for the fourth time as well, right? So these are the 4 construct which has been drawn in a very, very symmetrical manner. What I've done is, I have preserved the symmetry by this. Then I have gone to a copy-like icon. Then I simply hold the mouse left click and simply move the icon, so it has created a duplicate. So if you are not comfortable in creating the duplicate, you can simply draw 4 different icons. That's also okay. But the only thing is the diagram would not be symmetrical. That's the only problem. Otherwise, there is no issue. Anybody wants me to repeat anything, or not clear why we are doing it this?
It's fine, but the rotation, I missed the rotation only. How to rotate? Otherwise,
Okay.
it's okay for me.
Okay, so let me repeat the rotation again. I go to the second column. There is a 6th icon, which is a rotation. Rotate the indicator of a latent variable. If you could see in my screen, right? My mouse is there on this circular shape. So I select this one. The moment I select it, it would be highlighted. And you go to any of the icon, and then you move like this. You just click. You click the mouse going there in that construct, The moment you go to that construct, it would change to red color. And then you click on the left click, you simply click once, it would be rotated by 90 degree. If you rotate again, you click again, then it would again be rotating by 90 degree, and so on and so forth. Is this clear now, sir?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Now, what we have done is we have created a construct. Now we have to name this construct. So what I can do is I can name this construct. So first I would deselect, otherwise this would create a problem. So first I would deselect all these, the blue arrows which are there, I have to deselect. So I would deselect by third column, fourth icon, the closed fingers is actually deselecting. So I have deselected. Now, you might have been observing, in each construct, there is an arrow which is going and having a label as 1, or parameter has been fixed as 1. And all the error term, the parameter has been fixed as 1. So this is a kind of a constraint which we are putting to this particular software. If you remember when I was explaining the structural equation modeling, I said I have given three systems of three equation. X1 equals to lambda 1 x plus error, x2 equals to lambda 2 x plus error, x3 equals to lambda 3 plus x, lambda 3 x plus error. Now it is not possible to compute 6 distinct values with the giving only 3 distinct values. So therefore what you are doing is you are making the variances of the error term as 1. So that is why that has been fixed. And now interestingly, one of the parameter of any of the indicator item has been arbitrarily fixed as 1 by MOS. What happens is, sometime what you would be doing in your research is, you would be drawing a multiple indicator item and later on you realize, no, this item needs to be dropped. Now while dropping, let's say if you drop this particular item, then the 1 would also go, right? In that case, model would not run. So please be careful. If you are deleting any of the indicator item and you are deleting an arrow, please make sure that the 1 is being intact. Now, in case if it is being deleted and you want to retrieve back, what you can do is you click any of the arrow, double click the left click 2 times, and you'll get this drop box like parameter text. So you go to text, you go to parameter. In the parameter, you can type, let's say I want to fix the parameter as 1. So I can type as 1. You would find that 1 has appeared here. I don't want it here, but what I'm saying is in case if you missed out. Because the problem with the MOS is, if you do such kind of mistake and if you want to run the model, it would be unidentified. It would simply say model is unidentified and you need to put an additional constraint, and you will not come to know where you are doing mistake. So these are some of the common mistakes which are being done by the student, that they remove an arrow and do not realize that in addition to the remove arrow, the 1 has also gone, right? So always you have to come back, at least 1 arrow in this diagram has to be have 1, right? I don't want it, so I'll remove it. Okay? Is my point clear to all of you in what context I am talking this?
Yes, sir.
Shall I repeat what did I say, or you got it in what the practical issue I was discussing, that the students sometimes delete the arrow and then they come to us, a model is unidentified, what should I do? Then we check the model and then we realize that he has not maintained, that there has to be 1 on each, at least 1 time in the each construct, right? So that's the context in which I was discussing this. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Okay. Now I want to name these unobserved variable. Let's say the first construct is coordination. So I'll go to the text part, double click the construct, and then I write COOR, or I can write full coordination also. But let's say for my purpose, I have written the coordination only. So COOR, right? Then in the MOS, there is no button to OK, right? Simply you close the window, it would be automatically typed, or it would be automatically entered into the coordinate. So every time you don't need to close the button, and the one way of doing it is every time you close and then move your cursor to the next construct and do it. That's one way. Other way is you simply go to the next construct and double click once. You will get the arrow like this. So let's say the next construct is need assessment. So I have typed NA. Then next construct is, let's say, preparedness, PREP, preparedness, right? And then you don't need to close this icon. You can simply go to the icon construct and click there in the mouse. Automatically you will be directed to the blank this thing, right? So I have not closed it now. I have simply gone to the next construct, and let's say this construct name is PRO, performance. PRO, I have typed it, so it has come to be PRO. Any doubt in this? Shall I repeat?
So only one question. Why we are writing this in one column when we know which are the independent and the dependent variables?
Yes, that's a very good question. Ma'am, why we are writing in one column is, or one symmetrical way, is because we would go to the dependent independent only in the structural part. In measurement part, we would be correlating each of them.
Okay. All right.
So it's like we are testing whether, if you remember, while doing a regression, we first test whether there is a correlation or not. If there is no correlation, there cannot be regression.
Right, sir.
So similarly, we are doing the correlation right away.
Okay. Sir.
Once we realize, yes, there is a correlation, then only we would go for regression. In the language of SEM, that would be termed as structural model. The present model is a measurement model, ma'am.
All right, sir. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other doubt? You guys are okay? Okay. Now, we are almost done as far as the graphics is concerned, because rest of the things would be taken by the software in a very, very systematic manner. See, this is like creating a diagram. It's like in a room I have created a switchboard has been installed. Now, switchboard has been installed, but if there is no electricity, this switchboard has no meaning. So similarly, so far we have created a diagram, but we have not linked it with any data file. So the next thing which you would be doing is, you would be linking this diagram with a data file. So go to file, there is an icon like data files or Control+D. So I go to Control+D or data file, and then window would pop up, and it would ask the file name. I would select the file name, and what you would find here is, it may so happen in your case, by default it is .sav file. In the file name, there could be an .sav file, that is an SPSS file, but I have changed it to Excel file. Let's say there are various options which are there. In the drop down, you have to select the right option. It is Excel 5.0, the one which I have been using, right? No, file name is the same exercise data which is there on the desktop, right? But please make sure that it is an XLS extension, not the SAV extension. This has to be XLS. Now locate the file. Like in my case, I have to locate from my folder. Exercise data, and then I want to open. It says there are 3 sheets, sheet 1, sheet 3, sheet 2, sheet 3. Which sheet has a data? I would say sheet 1 has a data, so I would say sheet 1. I would select the data table, that is in the sheet 1, and then I say okay. Now this MOS is saying there are 200 respondents and all 200 responses are there. There is no missing value. And then I say okay. So now my file has been linked with the data or diagram. How do I know that whether file has been linked with the diagram? You can simply go to list variable in the data set, which is the third column, third icon. List variable in the data set. So let me figure it out if anybody has any problem. In case if online, if somebody has problem, let me know. Yeah. So sometimes there could be issue with the type of data file you have. Is it coming now? You link. Right? Any question if somebody has? Now since list variable in data set has this variable, so you can very easily identify which variable is to be dropped where. Is it acceptable, ma'am? Yes, table 1, sheet 1. Okay. Yes, now you say okay. And now you go to this variable in data set. Yes. We are here. Any issue with the online friends? All right. Now I know that core coordination comprises of 3 constructs: core 1, core 2. So I'll simply drag and drop. How do I drag and drop? Select this icon from the list variable and hold this icon with the left click and simply go and drop the icon, and don't drop in between. If you would drop anywhere in between, then there would be a new observed variable that would be created. So you have to be really careful while dragging and dropping, right? Drag it and drop. Now similarly, you can do it with need assessment 1, need assessment 2, and need assessment 3. Similarly, prep 1, prep 1, prep 2, and prep 3. And the fourth construct was availability, quality, timeliness, equity. So AVL, availability is the first, quality is the second, QUL is the second, timeliness is the third. But here you would find there is a need for one more arrow, right? So what you would do is, you would go to this. Any doubt up to here?
No, sir.
All right, great. Now, if you want an additional arrow to be drawn here, or additional observed variable is to be required, you simply select this crown-like shape, the third column first icon, and then click once only. Now you would find that the fourth item has been drawn, right? Now you would find that some of them are overlapping with each other. So what you do is, you go to preserve symmetry, and then you use this truck-like shape, preserve symmetry and truck-like shape to move the construct. Preserve symmetry is very important because otherwise the diagram would be elongated. So I would suggest to go for a preserve symmetry. Now why we have done it? The reason is there was only 3 observed variable in the fourth construct. I wanted to have a 4. So when I click this crown-like shape in the fourth construct, there is a blank icon which has been created. But the problem was that construct was overlapping with each other. So in order to remove that problem, I have selected 2 icons. One is in the third column, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like a floppy-like sign. There is a below the floppy-like sign, there is a preserved symmetry. It's like tree shape. So I selected the preserved symmetry. So preserved symmetry maintains the symmetry of the diagram. And then I use the truck-like sign here, the move, right? The fifth icon is the move. So when you select these two together, you are able to move the icon like this, right? So you simply left click and then you can adjust the diagram. All right.
Sir, I got that symmetry and moving, but I didn't get how you added the fourth item. Please.
Okay. I added this now. Just see my mouse, ma'am. I have gone to the third column, first icon, that is crown-like shape,
Right, sir.
and then go to any of the construct like PRO we wanted extra.
Okay.
Go and click once,
Or
only once.
okay. I get that.
Then you'll get one, right?
Okay, sir.
Great. That means you are doing along with us. That's great.
What is
Now,
preserved symmetry, Prof?
I'm sorry, preserve symmetry.
Which
Do I need
number?
to?
Which column?
Okay. In the third column, just below the floppy-like sign, there is a magnifying glass minus plus minus sign. Third
Yeah.
column, and probably ninth icon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Brand.
6, 7. I have kept my mouse there. You can check.
1 minute. Because
Is it visible?
the problem,
What
I
is-
cannot see the screen properly. The problem, I cannot see the screen properly.
This one?
I cannot. No, I cannot see your laptop screen.
Oh, is it the case with everyone?
I don't know. There is problem maybe at my end. In the
Yeah,
interview
yeah.
at my end. Yeah,
So
but
I would just guide it to you.
Yeah.
You go to the third column,
yes,
right?
yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th, and 10th icon. Is it
Yeah,
tree-like
got it.
shape?
Got it.
So that's the preserved symmetry. In addition to preserved symmetry, you have to select the second column, fifth icon, that is a truck-like sign, move.
Yeah.
So these two should be selected together. Otherwise,
Got
your
it.
diagram would be unnecessarily stretched and it would lose the symmetry. Okay?
Got it.
Great. Now, since
Thank
we
you.
got the fourth icon also, a fourth observed variable also, so here I would be again get my variables from the data set list, from the list variable in the data set. I go to the equity, EQTY, and then drag and drop here. And again, repeatedly, I'm saying that while dragging and dropping, please make sure that you drop at the right place. If it would be dropped anywhere other than this diagram, it would create an unobserved variable and the model would not run. That either you have to maximize the diagram and minimize the diagram and check where you have dragged and drop, and then you have to delete that. Let me tell you how to minimize and maximize the diagram. Just below the preserved symmetry, there is a view, a larger area of the part diagram. So there is you can minimize the diagram like this. And similarly, the plus sign would be like this. Sometimes when you drag and drop, you just minimize. Then you will come to know there is a problem, right? And then icon would be created. The problem with the MOS is sometimes it is not clearly visible. So you have to actually figure it out where you made a mistake. For example, you selected, okay, coordination should be measured by 4 items. Then later on you realize the core 4 is actually not fitting into the model, or it has a poor reliability validity, and you want to delete that. So there you have to be careful that the 1 is being maintained. Then also it would create a problem. No, it would say that it is this observed item has no relationship with any of the other item. You have to say delete it. All right. Now, the last thing which is remaining here is I need to do, in fact, two things which are remaining is I need to assign the error terms also. So one way of doing it is you write E1, E2, E3, but that would be very cumbersome and there could be a possible of error. So you just go to plugins. Go to plugins, just in the right hand side of the main menu, there is a file, edit, view, diagram, analyze, tools and plugins. Alt plus F8. So go to plugins. And then in plugin, you simply say name unobserved variable. Then the software would automatically assign error term to each of those error term. And I would suggest you to do it at the last, because if you would not do it in the last and if before assigning the name to the construct, if you do use this plugin, then the software would automatically give names to the construct also, like F1, F2, F3. This should be avoided, right? It should be only the name of the construct has to be typed by you, and this auto assign can be there for the error term. Any confusion in this step? Shall I repeat? Plugins?
Clear, sir.
Clear, okay. But it is there in the plugins, name unobserved variable. All right. Now, final thing, I want to draw a correlation between all these constructs. One way of doing it is select the second column, second icon, double-sided arrow, and put all these constructs to be correlated like this. But that would be very cumbersome and that might require a lot of time. So again, you can make use of the plugin. Before making use of the plugin, first select the construct. So what you would do is go to the first column, fourth icon, the single finger, right? Fourth column, single finger. So you go to select that icon and then select all the construct only, construct. So when you select, it would turn to blue. So you go to single item. So all the construct have been selected. Now they have converted into blue. All other observed variable and error term are not being selected. Only constructs are being selected. Is that clear? Do I need to repeat this step?
Yes. I have one problem.
Yes, sir. Please repeat.
For the unobserved variable, there's some unread variable F1, F2,
Because yes, because you have accidentally dropped that. All right. Okay, let me repeat. In case if you want to do anything undo, then you can Control Z or this arrow can be used. So equity was also gone. So let me put it into equity. Now, I said I want to correlate each of the construct in order to call it as a measurement model. Now, one way of doing it is you go to arrow, double-sided arrow, and draw a diagram like this, but that would be very cumbersome and there is a possibility that you miss out some some arrows. So better way is you select each construct. Then how do you select? First column, fourth icon, just below the title, there is a single finger. This is select one object at a time. So I select core. I go and simply click the core, NA, pre-RP prep, and performance PR. I have selected each one of them independently. Is this clear now?
Yes, sir.
Online friends?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now you go to plugins. Go to draw covariances. The moment you draw covariances, you'll get a diagram like this. Is that okay? Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Have you got the diagram?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me also name one observed variable because my error term is also. Now, you need to simply save this diagram, file, save as, and let's say you name it whatever way you want it, measurement model, RDIS, whatever, or ABC, right? Right? So this is a measurement model and I'm saving it on the desktop. So with this, we come to the end of the first session of today. And what we have understood so far in the today's session is, we have understood what is structural equation modeling, why structural equation modeling is so popular. In a very subtle manner, I have also explained that why ACM is superior to regression or multiple regression, right? Then I talked about the various terminology which you will be using in the ACM, like construct, observed variable, covariances. Then I also said ACM is nothing but a factor analysis and a regression analysis. By factor analysis and regression analysis, this part is more like a factor analysis. It's actually a confirmatory factor analysis. And the next part is more like a regression. That is why it is a combination of factor analysis and regression analysis. Then I explain you why ACM is termed as ACM. Then I explain the difference between the covariance-based ACM program and variance-based ACM program. We try to understand the difference between a formative construct and reflective construct. Right? What are the powerful features of ACM we have seen? And then more importantly, we have learned how to draw a diagram in an MOS. Right? In a very slow manner, we have understood all the steps of drawing the diagram. Now we are good to go for the analysis. But since some of you might be lagging behind in terms of doing it, right? So therefore, I'm deliberately just stopping here. Because in case, even if you are lagging behind in terms of drawing the diagram, you have at least some time to reflect and draw the diagram. So once we come back from the break, then we would be straight away starting the analysis. So that is, I'm strategically giving the break because some of you might not have kept pace with us. So in that case, I'm giving you the time. So when we come back after the break, you can always ask the question that this is where I got stuck up. You can also, because the online has its own limitations, so you can also click the photograph and share it in the WhatsApp group that this is where I'm stuck up. So I, to the best possible extent, will try to help you. So when we come back from the break, you should be ready with this diagram and we should be ready with the data file, right? Thank you very much.